And we say hello to journalist Borzou Daragahi, who writes at borzou.substack.com. Good to see you.
Yeah, great to see you too.
Just a question, listening to that clip there from the spokesperson from the Iranian foreign minister, the talking lines about how they're not seeking a nuclear weapon and all of this. Do you think that's the kind of language they bring into a meeting with the likes of Steve Witkoff in Geneva?
I think that's an interesting question. Do they pretend in there? I know that under previous negotiators, they did pretend. They did play that game, but you know, and sort of not talk straight, keep insisting slogans and so on. I would doubt, because we have a sort of reformist team at the top in Tehran in terms of the elected government, I think they would bring more plain-spoken, more realistic language and not pretend to be playing this kind of parallel game of, you know, this is our right and this is our, you know, this is how previous negotiations took place and got bogged down. I would imagine that would not be withstood very long by this administration in Washington, and they would immediately be like, okay, cut the BS, let's talk real.
All right, so when they say we're going to come back to you with more demands or suggestions in 2 weeks' time, is that stringing them along, or are they headed towards some kind of an agreement?
I think there's I think that it's probably both. I think that they are trying to create, and I think that this is true. It's an interesting moment because it's probably true on both sides. Both sides are playing a parallel game. You know, on the one hand, if they can get away with the deal for both sides that meets their conditions and lets them walk away without a war, that's great. If, on the other hand, they have more time to put military assets and other intelligence tools in place as well, that's great. And that goes for both Washington and Tehran now.
And so you have this situation where you have this second aircraft carrier that's now coming to the region. Cynics say, well, Donald Trump needs a war to distract from the Epstein files. Is it as simple as that?
I don't think it's as simple as that. I don't think that it will. I don't think first of all, I think the Epstein files are so big that they won't go away so easily. Even if they do go away in the heat of a weeks-long war, they will come back in time for November, which is when it will really hurt him. And second of all, I mean, this is a massive betrayal of his, if there is a war, it is a massive betrayal of his base, of his supporters, and so on. It will cost him way more than it will benefit him.
So it's very different from last June when the U.S. struck those nuclear
Even then,
facilities.
it didn't really it didn't benefit him much. Maybe it gave him a little uptick, but look where his poll numbers are. You know, I mean, that whole wag the dog thing doesn't work in this climate. You've been to the U.S., you've talked to people from across the political spectrum. There is no mood for a war with Iran now, except from a very tiny, consistently pro-war, tiny minority of constituents that are, you know, centered in think tanks in Washington. There's no appetite for this kind of conflict right now.
So, couple of looking back over the last couple of days, the prelude to these Geneva talks, where we saw big rallies over the weekend, particularly in Munich, where that security conference was taking place. One very senior U.S. senator addressed the rally, Lindsey Graham, a Republican. Does that move the needle in any way?
I mean, I think that those people will be betrayed. You know, I think that no matter what happens, this is not the kind. The tools that are in place right now by the U.S., the military assets that are moving into position right now, are not the kind of assets that you use for a regime change war. It's more of the kind of assets that you use for a weeks-long campaign of weakening the government, weakening the military aspect of the government. The Iranian regime will still have its small arms and militias that it will use to crack down on the people there. So it may, the U.S. And Israel may use as I've written in my Substack, if you could subscribe, please, they may use the protesters as a sort of fig leaf for their own very hard power ambitions. And that is rather cynical.
Coming days, what to expect inside of Iran? We're coming up to, what, 40 days since people started being killed in huge numbers during those protests. Now, 40-day ceremonies once upon a time there were somber affairs, but now could this be a political moment?
Yeah, I think it will be a political moment. I wouldn't even say it's a political moment. It's a very emotional time. This is the moment where the soul leaves the earth and goes to heaven. So it's a very significant emotional time for people. This is when they really, really say goodbye to their loved one who died 40 days earlier. And traditionally they gather at the cemeteries and they, cry and they, yell and so on anyway. Iranians are quite emotional about death. But there will be definitely attempts to turn them into rallies. This was how the revolution that toppled the Shah in 1978, 1979. This is how it gathered steam, was from these. Every time there would be a protester killed, 40 days later there would be another protest around that protester, and then more people would be killed. And then 40 days later, another round of funerals and protests and so on. And so this cycle, of course, the people are going to try to repeat it, and of course the regime is going to try to use brutal force to suppress it.
Yeah, I was going to say, are they going to be cowed because the scale of the killing, which we're still documenting, from January, it's nothing. It's off the scales compared to what happened under the Shah.
Even the 3,000 that the government says, and I tend to believe it's higher. I tend to believe it's at least 7,000 documented names. Even the 3,000, even if we take the regime at its word, that's an incredible number of people in a country like Iran. And you have it in all over, in every city and town and so on. So, you're talking about thousands of people, thousands of funeral marches across the whole country. So yes, this is a very, very crucial moment for the stability of the regime. And I'm sure they're going to try to crack down. And there's already reports of, for example, police being stationed in at the streets where the mourners are gathering and so on.
There's as well this suspicious death that's taken place in Athens. The TV producer of a hit Israeli series called Tehran found dead at age 52 in her hotel room. She's been labeled so far a possible suicide, according to police, but there were also bruises found on her body. What do you make of this, Borzou Daragahi?
I mean, I just don't know what to think these days, especially post-Epstein files. Every kind of conspiracy theory that I used to dismiss, I have to take seriously now. I will say that I've watched the show, like the first 2 seasons pretty religiously. And then like this season, I'm not so into. I don't know what else to say at this point about this situation. If you would pull off an assassination, if you had the means and capability to pull off an assassination like this and make it credibly look like a suicide, would you target a TV producer in Athens? I'm not sure. It's like, that's the question that I would ask.
Producers of the show saying that suggesting the death was a result of a criminal act is incorrect and unfounded.
Yeah, and I saw another report that said that items found in the hotel room where she was staying suggests that there was no foul play involved. To me, that usually translates as, and I don't want, and I, no sense insensitivity to the family and so on. To me, that usually translates into drug overdose.
All right, and we'll see what happens in any case with that. More broadly, right now at this juncture in time, with again this 2-track of talks on the one hand, again only just involving Steve Witkoff and a small coterie.
And the princeling.
We have no idea where it's going to go, but where can we look for clues?
Well, I think that one of the things that's not watched very closely, we see a lot about the U.S. preparations and a lot of reporting about that. I think that Iran is also preparing. They're ramping up their missile production. There's also these very interesting reports about Chinese surveillance ships coming close to the Gulf, possibly providing intelligence to the Iranians. Not any hard power. There's no danger, of course, that China is going to, intervene in the war. But why not provide the Iranians with some intelligence support, make it a bit of a fair fight? So I think that probably we are drifting towards some kind of kinetic action. But I think that the Iranian response and the Iranian preparations should be examined as closely as the American preparations as well. And I think that The things to watch are more on the kinetic front. What kind of equipment is being moved where? What kind of hardware is being assembled? Where are ships, and looking at places like the Caucasus, how are they preparing? Because those countries, those neighboring countries that are friendly with the U.S., friendly with Iran, will be getting signals and getting warnings if something is impending, just out of courtesy and diplomatic protocol. So I think that
but there's two kinds of warnings, right? There's the kind of warning where you sort of telegraph you're going to do something that's performative, but not really all that big. And then there's things that could spiral out of control.
I mean, Trump would love it Trump would love something that he could just declare a victory and walk away with. He's under tremendous pressure from Netanyahu and his allies in the U.S. to to do the kind of regime change war that he wants, at least, destroy its missile program and so on. But I don't think that Trump really wants that. I don't think that Trump is being warned by his people that that's not a easy one and done. So I think that he's just not getting from the Iranians the signals that he can get away with a quick 2 or 3 day war where he can just declare victory and walk away. And that is what is spooking both the U.S. and the security establishment in the U.S.
All right, May, thanks, Borzou Daragahi, for being with us.
Thank you.